You are welcome here. You are
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living on this beautiful morning. It is great to see you all here today, and a big shout out to the folks that are watching us online, either now or later, and also the folks that watch us on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us at this beautiful Center of Kindness. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the word over to my sister and board president, Lonnie.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I see that you made a good choice this morning. I was like, oh, should I do the marathon? Maybe I'll go to church.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you guys joined me.
Yeah.
And I have a really quick, funny story about making a good decision, because prior to meeting Nipun, Bonnie and I went to pick him up at the airport. And I've told you before that you just don't say no to Bonnie.
Good to know.
Just for your information.
Okay.
But she totally got me because she said, we're going to stop at the 7-Eleven for snacks. If I didn't have an affinity for Slurpees and Cheetos, I would have never met Nipun. Life is so good.
Life is so good. Thank you, Lonnie.
So I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And then let's hear from Bill, Mr. Bill, who is our youth and family person.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How can we create good for everyone? How about unconditional love?
Okay.
Sound good? Unconditional love is what we experience when we do something for others that makes their experience easy, better, or happier. These actions benefit others, yet we receive inner rewards. When you do something nice for someone, pay attention to how it makes you feel. You may feel excited, proud, happy, or even grateful. These are good feelings that help with positivity to energize our lives. So I'd like you all to reflect for a moment. Maybe take a breath and think about some actions of unconditional love you have given in the past. Can you see the inner rewards that you are receiving? I have some homework for you.
Yay.
Favorite part? Celebrate someone in your life by giving them your own act of unconditional love. I invite you all to repeat after me. I radiate unconditional love.
I radiate unconditional love.
And so it is.
And so it is. Thanks, Bill. So do we have any youngins in the house that want to come forward? Or looks like they're all out running the marathon or something, right? You're going to get surrounded with love, girl. Come on forward, Madison. Madison, why don't you come and you sit? It's your first time? Oh, Madison, you're brave. Why don't you come sit down on the stage right next to me and Mr. Bill here? Okay. There you go. Have a seat. And we're going to sing a song to you and any children that might be coming late. Hi, Madison. I'm Bonnie. Hi. Okay, here we go. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You go, girl. There you go. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. All righty. And so we breathe and allow ourselves to settle deeper into our seats and into our being, into our minds, into our hearts, into our guts, into our bodies. All of it, the divine presence. The divine presence that lives and moves and has its being in each of us. And as we settle in and remember who we are, we open our hearts to listen to the words of our sacred reading.
Why small acts and not big? An excerpt from a speech by Nipun Mehta. Many of us have one very important practice in common. Do small acts of kindness. But why not big, gigantic acts of service that help the maximum number of people? It's important to look deeply into the nuances of a small act. When we serve anyone in any way, we say to ourselves, I am doing this for someone else. In that moment, we shift our consciousness from me to we. It's a tremendous shift. If our brain is a forest of many neural paths, these we moments build pathways that we can use again and again. Moreover, we slowly start to notice that beginnings and ends of those paths aren't strictly inside of us. What is seemingly outside affects our inside, and what is inside of us affects the outside. Our innate interconnection then becomes a lived reality. By the very virtue of our interconnection, we can hold others and others can hold us, and we're all stronger because of it. This is the beauty of me to we. We organically fall into this profound connection, but its ripple effect goes much further. In that state of interconnection, there is a sense of satisfaction. There's less need to engage in mindless distractions. You just relax into yourself, and the mind quiets. It's like that feeling of coming home after a long walk of struggle. A quieter mind unlocks new capacities in us. The more we serve, the more aligned we become with our unique offering to the world. It's not unique in the sense that it's solitary, but it's unique in that it took your entire lineage of conditions to allow you to do that small act in a skillful way. With skillfulness, you become like the seasoned acupuncturist who knows precisely where to place a small needle to create a cascading effect across the whole ecology. Thank you for living this truth through your practice of small acts of kindness. It's a great privilege to be on this journey of deepening our awareness and connection through serving others. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. So let us breathe together into the power of the small, into knowing that the inner is the outer and the outer is the inner, and the above is the below and the below is the above, that we are one continuous universe of wholeness, of union, that there is no other, that there is only the I am presence. I, not meaning the I of the individual, but the I am that is the wholeness of the entire universe. As we sing together, I am remembering who I am, we remember, we recognize that presence within each of us, but we also recognize that that presence is not only me, it is we. It is every single person here in this room. It is every single being, every single atom in the entire cosmos. And so together we sing for all beings, I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I from the love of divine remembrance within us. On behalf of all beings everywhere, let us breathe in deeply. And then exhale, opening our eyes as love and in service to all that is, as it is, and so it is. Namaste.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be back here. It's been a while. I've got a real lively tune for you this morning. Gonna get the energy going. So here we go. There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all for myself. I didn't know the grace of God was sufficient. I didn't know the love of God was at hand. Now I can say if you're discouraged, struggling just to make it through another day, you've got to let it go. Yes, let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide, and I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit, and I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide, and I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide, and I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit, and I'm only here for God. Yes, we are free in the Spirit, and we are only here for God.
Hello again, everybody. Good to see you. So I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to do a brief introduction about our guest speaker. And this guest speaker is so special and so humble that I felt I had to do some slides for him. So let's bring Nipun up here and give him some love. We'll do the slides later on. Okay, there you go. Good job.
In divine order.
That's right. This is.
It's hard to stay undefined in life.
It certainly is. And this is a great opportunity for us to go with the flow, like we always talk about in service space. Or we could do the slides with you sitting up here so you could blush. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll just do the slides at the end, perhaps. Are we ready, Brian? Say what? Oh, okay. So you can say right there. Okay. So many of you know that we have this behemoth building here. Notice that I just combined bohemian and behemoth, but anyway, that's just... So years ago, probably 10, 11 years ago, we needed to renovate the room downstairs for for our recovery groups. We serve a lot of recovery groups downstairs, and it was mortifying, okay? It was disgusting down there. The ocean, you can see the ocean in that beautiful picture taken by a drone. The ocean was kind of seeping up through the floor, and it was squishy, and it squished when you walk, and it was just horrible. It was disgusting. We were mortified. So we decided we were going to raise a bunch of money in one fell swoop. That was me, okay? And I was going to have a super famous person, oh, wait, that did not work the way I wanted to. Super famous person come and, see, your slide was supposed to come second. But anyway, the super famous person come and give us a lecture, and we would charge a whole ton of money for him to be here, but he ended up wanting to charge us a whole ton of money for him to come here. Do you know who that super famous person is? Anyone can name him? Wayne Dyer, that's right. And he was lovely, and his people were lovely. He just wanted to charge a lot of money. But then we met Nipun, and Nipun says, "Hi, I'm Nipun, and I'm priceless." Literally priceless. Both literally and figuratively priceless. And the reason we found out about Nipun was that somebody sent me a talk that Nipun had done at an Ivy League school at UPenn about his walk through India. He and his wife, Gauri, pictured there, walked, was it, 1,000 kilometers through India? And it was a pilgrimage to go with an open heart, with a heart of service, with very little money attached to them. I think your budget was like $1 a day, right? And just to see how service showed up and how they could serve as well. He did a beautiful speech about that, and so we invited him here. We read the speech and fell in love with this person who was priceless and invited him to come here. And since then, we learned more about him. Nipun is the founder of Service Space, but there's many, many branches of Service Space, such as Kind Spring and Daily Good and Smile Cards. And really, the slides are not big enough. We would need a slide bigger than this room to describe all of the good that Service Space does in the world. Service Space rippled into our center in big ways. And again, I could talk for hours about the way that Service Space has impacted this particular community, but we started calling our hospitality Prasad, which I learned in India is food made with love. You notice Jennifer there is wearing an apron that says Prasad on it, and also a little heart pin. That's Ray Davis wearing a Be Kind t-shirt, and his wife Lori. And we started really making kindness part of our mission here. We also changed our logo, which is hands holding heart pins. Heart pins are a big part of the culture of Service Space, right? You'll see them around the church, and we have some back there. And then we started rippling heart pins out into our community. That's a barista at Starbucks wearing a heart pin. And then we also started doing acts of service around the community, such as that was a synagogue, a local synagogue that had their sign defaced with a hate message. And so a bunch of us cut hearts out of paper, and we went there and stood in front of the sign and just held up our hearts just to say we love our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we feel that love is the only thing that can move hatred out of the picture. And then we also reached out to our global community, and this is several years ago when we had the Jai Jagat children come. Jai Jagat was a group of children that did a play about Gandhi. You'll notice that there's a donkey in the picture in front. That, just so you know, is the donkey that was on the Academy Awards. Just so you know. He got his start on this very stage. He's moving up in the world, okay. So that was a reach out to India, but then we started reaching all over the world with our acts of kindness. Those are 3 church members, 3 center members holding what we call love mail. So if this was, a lot of this was pre-pandemic and we're starting to bring it back into service, but if we heard of an act of hatred or an act of unkindness, we would send, in response to hate mail, we would send love mail. And so those are 3 center members holding love mail in front of something that we installed called the ripple map, because kindness ripples. And so we put pins in this map wherever we have rippled, and there are pins everywhere. I don't think there's a pin in the Arctic Circle or Antarctica. I don't think there's one on Saturn, but pretty much lots and lots of countries have been rippled to by our group. And then the ripples continue, and this is just a group of us during the pandemic, when we were starting to allow people to come back into the center. The ripples continue. So we just want to, again, give Nipunji another round of applause saying, thank you, Nipunji. So It's great to have you. Go
I'm
ahead.
so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here.
It just feels like family for me. I think that was, I saw the photo that was a highlight for me was one with a little bit of hair. You know? I was like, yes, I used to be young once.
So it's been a while. It's been a while. You're still young. You're still so young at heart, and you've been such a blessing to us. So I have some questions for you so you can enlighten all of us. How's that?
Maybe I'll enlighten myself first.
Okay,
yes.
okay, good. So I kind of gave a quick history because I know a lot of you are not familiar with Nipun and his work. So that's kind of the background story. But, you know, I think when a lot of us look at the world or look at the news, we see that there's a lot of stuff going on that seems like it's fairly unpleasant and fairly distressful, if not completely distressful. And I wondered, Nipun, if you can kind of see a through line through a lot of stuff that's happening. Like, what is that all about? Is there an underlying tension that's creating all of this that you think?
I mean, I think at its core, I would say that we are separated, and when we feel separated, a lot of different emotions start coming up in us. And typically, the response of that separation is to cling, is to hold, is to gather, is to accumulate. And that ends up being a very vicious cycle. But instead, if we start to soften our gaze, and if we start to actually do the opposite, like, oh my God, I don't have enough, what should I do? Instead of solidifying our identity with our views, with our stuff, with all the sort of even material and subtler things that make up our identities, instead of that, if we soften our gaze, right, and if we start to see that, man, it takes a lot of conditions just for this moment. It's sort of what Hugh was sharing in the reading as well, that it takes all of eternity just even to do a small act of kindness, for even us to come together. It's like all your ancestry and all my ancestry coming together. And so how do we start to connect? And I think there's a way for me to be, so that it allows you to be in that space, and a way for you to be that it allows me to be in that space in me. And I think that's really the challenge of our times. We have a lot of things that are polarizing us, but how do we do this? And I think one of the underlying premise underneath it, I think the challenge is that we are distracted. That one of my friends actually had a very beautiful story. He said, we were sitting under a tree at a retreat, and he said, he shared a story of his personal life that's always stayed with me. And he said, the turning point in my life came when I had an hour-long commute, and every day I'd get in my car and get to work. And he was doing great stuff in the world. And this one particular day, he gets in his car, turns it on, goes to work, and he always had a habit of turning on the radio. And so the radio was on. And he arrives at his parking lot at his workplace, and it's an hour later, and he realized he hadn't heard a single note of music. The music was playing all along, but he was so distracted that he missed the music.
Wow.
And I think that's just a great metaphor, that there is so much happening in every moment, but if we are distracted by our sort of petty desires, then I think we end up missing the larger. You know, there's that Hafiz poem or quote. He says, I was just thinking of this yesterday. We were in a circle, and he says, noise is a cruel, this should be said in a Hugh voice, but okay, let me see if I can do it.
Okay.
Noise, no, I can't.
Okay.
A for effort, right? Me and the tech team both,
Yeah.
Noise is a cruel ruler, always imposing curfews.
Ooh.
But stillness and quiet break open the vintage bottles and awake the real band.
Wow.
So I think the music of the real band is playing all around us, but it's the noise of our minds that takes us away from it, you know. And so I think this is a challenge and a response, perhaps. You know, how do we help each other awake to the real band? And the real band is all around us in every moment.
The real band is all around us every moment. That is so beautiful. Thank you for that. One of the, how we're an interfaith center, and we blend a lot of traditions together, and one of the, we'll do an audience participation thing with this, okay? One of the quotes that I often say, and don't feel bad if you don't know it, from the Gospel of Thomas, the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, but we do not, right? The real band is spread upon the earth, but we do not, because we're so distracted, right?
Connie, gee, that's pretty amazing,
Thank
man.
you, thank you.
That's like serious improv. I mean,
I made up
wow.
the part about the band. I just threw that into the Gospel of Thomas, but Thomas won't mind, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, but it's so true, isn't it? Yeah, and it sounds like, I've spoken to you before, but we're distracted by social media and whatnot. What else do you think are some of our primary distractions, like in terms of emotional states?
Oh, I won't get into AI, right? The ChatGPT, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
But I think this mindset of extraction, I think this tendency to transact, this tendency to draw, there's deep reciprocity that we're all embedded in. But when we narrow that deep reciprocity into direct reciprocity, I'm doing this for you, what are you doing for me? That shrinks all our experience of life. But if you expand that and you say, well, I'm doing this for you, and you are like you did that act of kindness. Somebody gave the heart pin to the Starbucks barista, right?
Right.
So I'm doing this for you. You don't have to do anything back for me, but you do it for somebody else. And whoever that somebody else is, because we are kin, it's all good. Like,
yes.
We're all connected in
yes.
that. And I think, how do we draw bigger circles of care? How do we draw bigger circles of reciprocity? And I think the saints are the ones, like you look at someone like St. Francis, for example, they are drawing not just moving from direct to indirect, they are doing infinite reciprocity. So they are like, even if no one is noticing, even if I have no idea what this ripple of love is going to do out in the world, I'm still going to do it. Because I know in 5,000 years, that's going to stand. Because it goes from heart to heart to heart, right?
Yes.
So I think we have to learn to tap into that. And I think the challenge is that all our systems are narrowing us down into... Even our relationship to God and the divine and the sacred
Yes.
is all too often very transactional.
Absolutely.
And so, how do we reframe our inner networks, so to speak,
Yes.
before we can complain about the outer networks? To say, no, man, I just want to embrace everything as prasad, as you said,
Yes,
right? Everything
yes.
as grace. That's the Indian word in some sense for grace.
Yeah.
So how do we look at life in that way? And I think that's a challenge, and I think that's an opportunity as well.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And part of the beauty of what you just said too, like let's use the Starbucks barista as an example. So somebody gave her a heart pin without attachment to where that heart pin leads her, but it was so satisfying for the person who gave her the heart pin with that consciousness. So it's not only that it's going to do something 5,000 years later, which it will, which it totally will, but it also does something to the giver so that the giver can give more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the inner ripple effect.
Yeah.
I think we always get, now you get me excited about
Yeah, me
kindness,
too. I know.
right?
Let's talk. Yeah.
Like usually we're looking at the outer ripple effect, right? I did this and this happened and that was inspiring because I changed this person. But we forget about the inner ripple effect,
Right,
which
right.
is so profound because now for the rest of eternity, me and all the people I touch are going to get a little bit more love.
Yes.
Because I have grown in love through this moment, through this small act of kindness, through sharing this with you, whatever that this is. Right?
Yes.
And so to me, I find that to be exciting. And actually, I don't know why I'm coughing, but I am.
Do you want your
I have
water?
a little water.
Do you want your
No,
water?
no, it's good, it's good.
Peter,
Sure, Pete, can you give me
G.
that?
Go, there you go, Mary. Everybody wants to bring you water.
Oh,
Yeah.
Small act of kindness.
There you go. Yay,
There.
Peter. All right.
So I was in Austria, and I learned this lesson in an incredible way. So I was supposed to go give a talk, and it was like this Peace Award thing, and it was like a big fancy event. And before the talk, I was like I did here, I went to the bathroom, right? And so I was just getting ready, and I was, I had to get mic'd up, things like that. And in the bathroom, I meet this guy, and we just start chatting and saying hello. And at the end of that conversation, just a casual bathroom conversation, he looks at me and he's like, you don't look like you're from here.
Wait, you don't look Austrian? Yeah. Okay.
I was like, yeah, I'm not from here. He's like, well, can I, do you need a ride somewhere to go somewhere? I'd love to help you with that. And I was like, wow, that's kind of nice. Like a total random guy I'm just meeting for the first time in my life in a bathroom. He's giving me a ride, right? And I was like, no, I'm good, yeah, but thank you. That's very kind of you. And then he's like, do you need a place to stay?
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, this is like, I was like, I am not from here, but I might move to Austria, if people are this kind. And I was like, no, I'm good, yeah, but maybe next time, we'll stay in touch. And then I was like, he wanted to stay in touch. And so he said, well, let's exchange, he said, we'll exchange each other's contact information. But let's not do it in the bathroom. I'll wait till you get out, I mean, it was going beyond the capacity of the bathroom, I felt like, as a sacred space. It was pretty good, right? But it was like, and then he's like, I see that he's going to the bathroom, and then I see he opens his stall door, and then he goes to another one, and there's a third one. And I realize he's the janitor.
Aw, that's so sweet.
And so I said, wow, initially I was like, well, what are you doing? And then I realized that he's cleaning the bathrooms. And I was like, let me help you with that. And so before this talk, we were both doing that. To me, it was a great lesson that it's not what happens on the stage. Like every place is the center.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like what happens in the peak moments in your life. Every moment is the center of something.
Yeah.
And I think if we start to take that view, then we can really broaden our circles of reciprocity.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I keep laughing. A lot of this
Bonnie's got a mischievous comment coming up.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of this is in my book.
There it is. Here's a preview. Dances with Dogs
That's right.
coming soon.
That's
Wait,
right.
isn't it coming out soon?
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty soon.
Well,
Next month sometime.
There
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
There it is.
That's why I keep laughing. But there's a little joke between the two of us. We'll talk later. Okay. All right. But anyway, so tell us more about some of the ways that service-based addresses this. Beyond the ripples, the kindness that you talked about. I think you've said some of it already. Before you do that though, I just had a little thought. I heard you do a podcast, and the guy asked you, what if you do an act of kindness and it is not appreciated?
Yeah.
That's a good one, right?
That's a great.
Has anyone ever done that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of mortifying, right?
Yeah.
In the moment. But what do you say about that?
Yeah. I think hurt people hurt people, and healed people heal people. And so if you are face to face with somebody, this is Gandhi's teaching as well. He says you can oppose the action but love the person. And you can only oppose the action and love the person if you see them as more than their actions, which means that first you have to see yourself as not the keeper of all your actions, as not the ego that's doing it. So you realize that, and this is, I think, one of the biggest lessons of service. A small act of kindness teaches you that it's not me doing this for you. It's actually not a me-to-me connection. At its deepest core, it's a we-to-we connection. That it's not a personal, there's something satisfying and something solidifying about I know you and I've been here so many times. I love Bonnie, I do. But there's something much deeper when I realize that, man, Bonnie and all her relations and all her conditions are coming together with Nipun and all his conditions and relations. And in this moment, there is this giant union, and it's not additive. It's not 1 + 1 is 2. It's actually multiplier effect, right? 1 + 1 is greater than 2 because the plus sign has value.
Right.
How we come together, if we come together in love, then that we and we is creating a whole new dimension of possibility.
Right.
Right. So how do we start to look at each moment, I think, in that way? And I think there's just a lot of potential to do that. And I think our world doesn't encourage that. Our world encourages us to take credit for everything that we are doing, to solidify. And that as a source of strength pales in comparison to grace as a source of strength.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
that was your song earlier.
Yes.
That this, what did you say? Effective? Was that the word I heard? Sufficient. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say it's way more effective than the grace of the ego.
Yeah. Thy grace is sufficient unto thee. Oh. Another
second
one.
act of kindness.
Awesome.
Because that didn't have much water in it.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah.
We're seeing the ripple effect here with water, right? Just ripple that water, dude.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, the me to me, the me to we thing, it becomes, and God knows I don't always experience this, but the way that you're speaking helps me see the potential for this, that it's not even me that's doing the act. It is we that's doing the act. It's everything I've learned from you, everything I've learned from Service Space, everything that this beautiful congregation has taught me. There's a huge we behind my me, you know, and vice versa, right? Yeah.
And you want to harmonize with that. And I think that's when, it's like when a small act of kindness is so powerful is when, like St. Francis of Assisi, right? He says, make me an instrument of thy peace. He's saying, not through me, right? Something we were talking about earlier.
Right.
And when you see yourself as a vessel, it's not like, oh, my ego's lost. It's that your universality leads your uniqueness.
Right.
If your uniqueness leads your universality, it doesn't quite work. Right? So you're divine first, you're an instrument first, and then you offer in a very unique way. So St. Francis is giving sermons to animals, right? And to birds.
Right.
That's not something all saintly people will do, but that was unique to him. And each one of us has that unique expression based on our causes and conditions. But if we lead with that uniqueness, we polarize. Right. If I say, look, I only like you if you're bald. We have a few bald people here, right? Like, that's just going to be polarizing. Oh, there it is. One more. Yeah.
Oh, yay.
He's like, I'm going for the president of Bald Club. Yeah, this is it, man.
In crowd, yeah. Right. Yeah, it's amazing. And, oh, wow, it just flew out of my head. It's gone.
It's good.
It's good. It was supposed to fly out of my head.
Well, I think the we part of it. So I'll tell you another story. Can I tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love stories.
You go for it. I know you do. I love stories.
There it is.
Okay.
So it's probably bad for time management.
Yeah,
but that's why we have Bonnie on stage. I don't have to worry about it. So I was in India once, and somebody gave me some sweets, and this is about the point of learning to be an instrument, to see more of the we to we instead of the me to me, And so somebody gave me some sweets, and they were from a sacred place, and I love sweets, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna really launch into it, but not while they're there. So I'll be like graceful, thank you, very kind of you. No one's looking, I'm gonna pound it down, you know. And so I had it in my car. I'm going, and I have to go to the next event. And along the way, this holy man, this monk comes. Or at least he had the holy gear, right? So he had monastic robes, and he knocks on the window. It's a traffic jam. And he's like, you got something. He's asking for money. And I was like, I got something better than money. I got some really sweets. I got these amazing sweets from a holy place, and I really loved it. So I was like trying to give him this thing. And so I rolled down my window, I gave it to him, and I felt like, wow, I gave him the best of what I had. And then the car starts moving. I look back at him, and just, I shouldn't have. Infinite reciprocity. I should have been like St. Francis and been like, yeah, I'm sure somewhere it creates a ripple of love. But I was like, I kind of want to see what happens, like what's his reaction? When he eats it, it's going to be like amazing. So I look back, and he took this piece of sweet and he threw it on the ground. He's like, I don't care for this. And when he does that, my first thought was sort of like, I was like, oh man, that was something given with a lot of love and a heart. Like, you just threw it down like that. And then I stepped into a deeper place in me, and I realized, oh, Nipun, stop making it about me. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? That was not your sweets. You didn't go out and get that. It was gifted to you. So if Hugh is giving me those sweets, it's flowing through you. And guess what? It was not about that man either, because he threw it on the ground and the ants are going to eat it.
There you go.
And so you're looking at this whole situation, you're like, the whole equation was between Hugh and the ants. And I made it about me and this person that was in front of me. And I was like, wow, that's so egotistical. And of course, you pay for that, because all of a sudden, I'm like looking and saying, wow, that was an act of kindness gone bad, But it didn't go bad at all. It was actually a moment for my own transformation where I said, wow, it's really a we to we. So if we look at it in that way, you are less fixated on the outcome. You're less fixated on things working out because love always works out. You sort of rest in this much deeper place that love is always going to work out, and you are not asked to be the judge of that. Right? So you take yourself out of the center, and that's a very empowering place to be, because you're like, wow, like I just have to be an instrument. That's it. Right? And that's to me is a really, like even now as I'm saying it, I'm sitting up, I'm like, yeah man,
exciting,
like
I
I just want to be empty. I just want to get love.
Yeah, I know. And I think I know, I really feel what you're saying. I'm trusting that others feel it too. And yet it's so tempting to get sucked into being the opposite of what you're saying. So is there a specific way that you recommend that we get, how can we get really good at this? If we want to, like I really want to. Probably others do too, but how do we get really good at this?
Well, one answer to that is practice, right? So, and that's obvious. So just try it, do it. I think we've got heart pins in the back, and they're all different colors now today, yes. So take a heart pin, give it to somebody, wear it yourself, and if somebody says, oh, this is nice, give it to them. So I think there's 1,000 ways to practice small acts of kindness, and we can talk about that later in the Q&A, how to do it. But I think there's a deeper, all too often, transformation. We all want to be transformed. We all want to be better versions of ourselves. But we put the burden of that transformation on our ego shoulders. And our ego's capacity is just not enough to deeply transform our deepest patterns. So the individualistic approach, right? I used to play a lot of tennis. And so when you go out and lose a match, what do? You go drill more and you try harder. You do that with spirituality, it's not going to work, right? You're like, oh, I just want to be a better person tomorrow. Why can't I be like St. Francis tomorrow? You can't. Because even he couldn't because of his own will. He would say it was grace. So at what point you have to have your effort, but at what point does grace kick in? And so I think one of the big assets in this is community. So what happens is it's not just that I'm going to do it as an act of kindness. I think there's value to that effort and practice, but there's also deeper value to grace. And what is the field in which grace arises? It is community. It is kindred coming together in the spirit of love. So I was in India. I was recently in India, so I've got all these India stories. But these guys like blew me away. So one guy was diagnosed with diabetes, and he loves sweets. Right, like another sweet. Am I craving sweets right now?
I am,
maybe,
always.
Maybe. Yeah, chocolate.
Yeah, I think we got some in the
who
back.
doesn't like chocolate? Yeah. So this guy was diagnosed with diabetes, and he was like, "This is too much," and it was like a severe case, and it kind of blindsided him and all that. All his friends were like, "Yeah, this is really bad," and he says, "Oh, there's no way I can give up sugar. I love sugar," and his friends did something remarkable. They gave up sugar for a whole month. They didn't even tell him about it. They weren't saying, you should do this, you should do that. But because of their bond, it's like this root ecosystem. If you're all connected at the roots, like what you do, if Bonnie and I have a deep kinship, if she does an act of kindness and she has a micro moment of transformation, I will benefit from it no matter where I am in the world. And we all know this with our moms. Right? Like, I don't know, I'm sure everybody's had this experience, but if I'm sick in a different part of the world, like my mom will just call me, she's like, Nipun, how are you doing? And I'm like, how the heck does she know, right? It's like this deep internet connection. And so I think at its core, it's not just individual practice, it's falling into grace, trusting and leaning into grace, but that grace comes in a field of this community, right? So the fact that you do acts of kindness together with each other is actually really significant. It's not like a takeaway. You see something on YouTube, you read a book, and you're like, yeah, kindness is great. It releases oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin and endorphins, and so let's do it. Yeah, I'll do it more, and I'm going to do a 21-day individual challenge. But if we do it with each other, there's something profound and sacred and very long-term in terms of its benefits. And so I would say practice, but also do it together.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. You know, one other thing comes to mind, and I know this is about you today, but I just read. I'm almost done with Rainn Wilson. You know who that is? He's the actor in The Office, right? And he wrote a book called Soul Bomb.
Yeah, I heard about
Yeah,
that.
so one of the things he said to do, and I think it's another great way to practice, and he doesn't say it this way, but I'm going to say, bless the irritant, bless the person who irritates you the most. What he said to do with that is to, let's say somebody has 10 characteristics that irritate you, but there's one characteristic about that person that you like. He says, focus on that. He said, even if it's personal hygiene, even if he smells good, focus on that. And I think that's a great way to practice, because it seems like we've all got irritants in our life, whether it's people or not, issues on the freeway or whatever it is, but just to like really start to blessing the irritants as a continual practice,
Yeah.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
very
it's about
challenging.
changing the eyes through which you look at yourself. And I
Absolutely,
think if you
yeah.
do that practice with other people, and you say, look, they have 10 qualities, 2 of them I absolutely don't like to be around, but I'm going to soften my gaze,
Yeah.
and I'm going to look at the 8. What we will start doing, I've noticed this in my own experience, is that we start doing that with ourselves.
Yes.
Because otherwise we're so critical. We're like, oh, I failed, I'm not good at this, I'm never going to there's no grace coming, there's no effort coming either. You're like, I'm just in the same patterns.
Right.
But you learn to soften your gaze, and you're like, okay, I'm not good at this thing, but I'm just not good at that thing on a Monday, because guess what? On a Friday, I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
Right? And you wouldn't have noticed it if you didn't soften the gaze, but unless you practice that in relationships,
Yeah.
because everyone else is a mirror ultimately,
Yeah.
you're going to miss that.
Right.
So I think we are the winners for having done that. Whether the other person changes or whether you have a long-term relationship with them or not, just by that attempt of blessing the irritants, which is calming your mind down to soften your gaze and to see the other 8 things,
Yes.
can actually really be profound for us.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was thinking about saying before, not that per se, but the thing that we often want to make our ability to be kind or our ability to see grace or be in grace dependent upon others or the external world, and it's not. Actually, the external world, we can be dependent on it, but it's dependent in a different way. It's there to stimulate us to go even deeper into grace and deeper into kindness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm with you on that.
Okay, good.
I was going to give a Jesus example, but I'm like, I can't talk about Jesus at a church,
You can talk about Jesus. Jesus, he's right up there. He don't care.
Well, as in, I'm
Yeah.
not qualified enough
I'm
to
not
talk.
either, so there you go. And it's not, I don't know if it's a Christian church or not.
Oh,
we're still, the jury's out.
Okay,
on
all
that.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
Well, I can see
when you see
your
who's up there,
congregants
yeah,
there.
yeah.
This is quite a choir you
It
have.
is quite a choir, yes, yeah. You know what, we only have time for one more question, but just so you know, there is going to be a question and answer period, probably about 11:15, 11:20, where we're going to come back and we can ask Nipun's questions, or ask Nipun questions, and he'll give more of his wisdom. But I just want to close with one more question, because I obviously did not stick to what I planned to ask you, which is great.
That's why it's great.
Yeah, it is great, yeah. What gives you the most hope? In a world where it seems like there's lots of challenges, what gives you hope?
I think what gives me hope is that the human heart unfailingly responds to the advances of love. Mm-hmm. I could be an everyday person. I do a small act of kindness. I pay forward. I pay for the coffee for the person behind me. Mm-hmm. And I have zero marketing budget. I have zero messaging training. I'm not like trying to impress them. Maybe I'm really awkward and the person behind the counter is like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But by the end of it, you will see very clearly that the human heart unfailingly responds to the to the advances of love. It's unstoppable. Okay, one last Indian
for it.
story.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's all
can I
right.
do
Yes,
this?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going in my slow tone as if I was closing, but now I've got
That's okay.
another
You're good.
story.
You're good.
So a bunch of kids came up to me and he's like, yeah, you think people are actually kind, there's a lot of meanness in the world and all that. And I was like, and we had this chat, and at one point we were just walking down the streets. And I said, let's just stop. And this is in India, so this was like late at night, maybe 10:30, 11. And so you had all the janitors coming out, and they happened to be old women, who needed those jobs and who were doing it. And it's a tough job. And so we went up to them. I said, let's just go up to them, and befriend them. And we did. And we said, you're like my grandma. Could I do your job while you take a 10-minute break? Not the end of the world, not going to change the systems, not going to change all the things that are wrong with the world, just a 10-minute break, right? But they saw in us that we genuinely felt that they were like our grandmas. And so we said, yeah, just as your grandchild, like, would you let us do that? And we did that. And then like another guy's like, oh, that's a good idea. I could do this too. And like pretty soon, like all the grandmas we took them to like this lemonade stand that was nearby, and we're like, you guys sip lemonade. And so they were feeling like $1 million, right? They were like, we're on break, we're sipping lemonade, and yeah, this is our crew doing the work for us, But what was amazing is that not only we all felt great, we felt connected to the grandmas felt great, but pretty soon there was a whole crowd of people. They were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're like, oh, we're just giving them a little break. And they're like, what? Which organization? We're like, no organization, man. We're just being human. And then they would look for a while, and this was a little bit before the selfie age, but otherwise, you'd be like, oh yeah, like I want to put it on social media. But after a while, a bunch of them were like, oh, that's kind of nice. Like, can I do it too? And we're like, here's the broom, man. Go give them a 20-minute break. Like, after me, you can sign up. And all these people started signing up. And they were like, oh, yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it after you. I want to do it. And we were all gone. Like, the original 5 of us that were helping these 5 grandmas, we were all out of the picture. And now everybody else is doing it. And this, I think, is the momentum of love. It's like, it doesn't matter where you are. I've done it, like, in Taiwan, where we were not even speaking the language. And you pay forward. And it's just like, it's amazing how people just light up. It's amazing how they don't just light up individually, but they all come together in community. And I think this is a much stronger force than the narrative of the dominant paradigm, which is that we are self-centered and we aim to maximize self-interest. I think that's a story of our current paradigm. That's a story that does not hold water over a longer period of time. And that gives me great hope that even if we have nothing, but we have that flame of love, we act on it, and we notice it creates an external ripple effect, it creates an internal ripple effect, and it brings together a murmuration that is organizing in divine order. Is that the right language?
Yeah, good.
Which I think gives me tremendous hope. So I'm here in that spirit that we have all come together, even if we're thinking it. Even if today Bonnie and I are up on stage, you're there. It makes no difference really in the larger scheme of things. The thing is that we are generating an intention of love in this very moment and coming together in this sacred way, in this sacred space. And man, it has to flow out it will, like there's no option because of the strength, not of this, for the strength of love, for the strength of this deep grace that we are all endowed with, that we're all instruments for. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Nipun. Thank you. Preach. Yeah. I think we're good. I'm going to do a prayer, so thank you.
There it is. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you, guys. I'm going to stand for you, too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. So in the spirit of that, oh, goodness. I'm going to have to count on Grace to do this prayer through me because that was so beautiful and so eloquent. And so let's just tap into the energy that was generated here in this time together, knowing that it is grace, that it was grace, and that it is ongoing, that it is an aspect of every part of us. We couldn't be in these bodies unless we were part of grace. We are part of grace right here and right now, and that grace is who we are. And so we live from that place. I trust today that hearts have been opened, that minds have been opened, that acts of service ripple through us, that we are unattached to the outcome, and that we just trust that there is a force and a presence, a divine order that just is orchestrating everything, and that we get to be instruments for that. We get to be vessels for that. And that opportunities present themselves right and left and front and back and up and down, and we just say yes, yes to everything. that the ripples flow out from us, but the ripples flow into us. And we are so inspired that we become even larger vessels for grace, for these small acts of goodness that have the capacity to bless the world, to lift us up, and to bless and trust the truth that is true, so that we may live like the truth is true. And so I'm just so grateful for this time together, so grateful for this service, so grateful for our brother Nipun and for everything that's happening today, so grateful for everyone here that has said yes to the center, that has braved the traffic and has come here to celebrate together. I give thanks to all paths to this teaching, to churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, ashrams, fundamentalists, atheists, agnostics, everyone, for everyone is a blessing. And with a heart that is so filled with gratitude, I say thank you, Spirit, thank you, love, thank you, grace. And I release these words into the divine mystery. And together we say, and so it is. Turn within, and we just know and trust that the divine has led us here today with such grace and such wonder and such love, that hearts have been opened, and that we are here to reveal the magnificence that is within not only us, but within all things, in the cosmos, in the other beings that we inhabit this beautiful planet Earth with, in the human beings and the animal beings, in the rocks and the trees and the sun, in the stars, in all things, there is the divine. And so in the spirit of that celebration, we live with the divine as the divine, and let that divine energy to pour through us as we go our separate ways. We trust always that we are held in divine grace, and that we can rely on that grace to lead us into mysterious and mystical and wonderful ways that involve generosity and kindness and goodness and so much love. And so with a heart that just says thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for lending your consciousness, your heart to this spiritual soup, to this spiritual center that we're creating. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for what has happened here today. With grace and with goodness, and again with great love, I release these words to the divine mystery, and together we say, and so it is. Namaste.